Welcome to Blue Talks. To have Louis Lombardi with us today. Listen to some of Louis's background. It's pretty cool. He's born in the Bronx, New York. I was given this, so hopefully I get this right.
Okay. I'll stop you. every time you say something wrong, I'll grab your arm.
Okay.
Okay.
Was it right?
No, I'm kidding. Just read it. I'll correct you.
Okay, cool. So Louis began his acting career in 1993. Not correcting yet. When he appeared in Monk's Friends. After that, he has appeared in roles in films like Beverly Hills Cop 3, Natural Born Killers, Ed Wood, The Usual Suspects, one of my favorite movies of all time, Suicide King, Spider-Man 2, Chasing 3000, Battleship, Any Day Now, and Runner Runner. Get that right?
You named all the bombs. I didn't get one hit there.
Maybe that's not something else. On television, put it at NYPD.
Yeah.
CSI, Crime Scene Investigation. So is that the Vegas one? Like CSI, they're really CSI.
Yeah.
Wait, what's his name? Grissom?
I guess.
Okay. Las Vegas, Ugly Betty, Monk, and Hawaii Five-0. And aside from guest roles, Lombardi has had a recurring role in Sopranos as Agent Skip Lipari.
Yes.
And he was also part of the main cast of the 1990s revival of Fantasy Island. And it's not here, but 24.
I did Sopranos, 24, and Entourage. So I'm on probably basically. Is that it with the bio? We can stop reading.
I think so, yeah.
You have any questions anybody can ask?
The other thing is completed work on Doughboys.
A film that I wrote, directed, and starred in, and I got to shoot it back in my neighborhood in the Bronx. And that's another crazy story, I believe this is, I don't know if you have questions, but I was just going to.
Yeah, go.
But I just believe the biggest thing. Start the time. The biggest thing I realize is, adversity is there to challenge you to see how much you'll quit, right? And that's my whole life. Since I was a kid, right? 4 years old, my father was killed. A year later, my grandfather went to jail and did 60 years. So I was brought up in this neighborhood in the Bronx where everybody's just that mentality. And, I'm brought up by all women, right? And all I ever did from 4 or 5 years old was learn to cook. And, after all that stuff happened, my mother kind of went off the rails. So I was at my grandmother's, one grandmother. And people go, oh my God, that's such a tragic story. And I go, right now, because we're writing a book on it, and I go, it's absolutely not, because just saying my father didn't pass away at 3. Would I have fell into that world, and would I have done 20 years in prison? Would I have been a gangster? What happened was it kind of freed me, because I would visit my grandfather in these prison rooms like this with 100 people. And most kids were like thriving. I want to be a gangster. My mentality was like, look at these people suffering. As a 5, I'm showing you pictures of 5 in Lewisburg Penitentiary to 40 in Allenwood. And my grandfather never got out, so we grew up in the system. And I would see the guys don't suffer. You're in jail. You're busting balls. You're eating what the fuck you want. It's like, joking. But the women are the ones who bear the grunt of everything. The women are the ones who suffer, bringing up these kids with no money, struggling. And I watched that my whole life. And the biggest lesson and the biggest strength of my mentality was my grandmother, my mother, and my aunt. They actually made me who I am, which you could see is a big, aggressive Italian male, but from 3 women. And it couldn't have been any more of a blessing, because I ended up having a daughter who now I teach to cook, and it became a generation of things, right? So as a kid, my neighbor wants to be a gangster. And when I would go to my grandmother's when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I would watch TV. All in the Family, Odd Couple, Carol Burnett, all these shows. And I would fixate on the TV because that was my outlet, And even as a kid, I never was like, boo-hoo. I would just go around the neighborhood by myself since 5, 7, 10, 12 years old. And I would learn, all right, this happened, but look what I have now. And I would watch these shows that ended up breeding me for my career as an actor. I have headshots. People go, when did you start acting? Sopranos? Dude, that was 2000. I've been doing it since I'm 13. I will show you headshots. As soon as I was old enough to get on a bus to take it to Manhattan, I would go get headshots. 12 years old. I never went to school. I went to 5th grade. I never went to acting school. I never went to film school. People go, oh, I spent all this time in school. I go, good for you, if it works for you. But the biggest life lesson I learned is get out there, put me in, and I will throw touchdowns. That kind of, you overcome adversity. Adversity, like I said, is there to see how far you'll quit. I never quit. and I learned how to act for free, right? When I was 12, 13 years old, people go, you were in acting school. I auditioned for NYU films. I would send my audition, my headshots to like this backstage paper, and I would get all these student films, right? And I would start doing student films because you're learning. I didn't have money to $50,000 a year to go to school. I quit school in 5th grade. So what I would do is I would go to NYU and I would watch and I would learn how to make movies at a $50,000 education for free. And I learned how to act for free as well, not in the classroom, but on real sets, even though they were mini sets. It's a real movie. Those little student films are $50,000, $60,000 films. So at the time, in 89, 90, that's big money. Kids are going to school. And I ended up having so much fun with these kids. You know, you do a film, or the whole class does it. Then you do yours. So I had so much fun. They would just pass me around as an actor. And I ended up doing so many NYU films. Well, as a kid, right? Because I would just go, you know, I was like a street kid. I would go down, hey, want some weed? They'd be like, yeah. I would get high and drink beers. I had money and I had a kid, you know? And the funniest thing is I did a show called Sopranos, and Big Pussy, everybody know the Sopranos? There's Big Pussy? I know Big Pussy, and he just did the interview on the Sopranos podcast, so it's not like I'm saying anything, but he goes, I know Louis since I was 13. He's a lot older than me. When I was 13 years old, my friends and uncles and stuff kind of ran stuff in New York, and I would go with him. They're all dead or in jail, so nobody's got to worry. Shut that camera. So what happened was I ended up going to his bar. He owned a bar. He was a bar. It was a little before TV. I was 13. He was like, 40-something. And we would like shake him down. And he said it on the podcast. Louis would come in my bar at 13 years old. So that's how far back I go with him. Who would believe 30 years later, we're on the biggest show in TV history together? Is that a coincidence? No. I mean, I kind of think everything happened for a reason. And my whole life has happened from adversity. When things look worst, I tell everybody this. When things look worst, that's when they get great for me. And that's my whole life. Like I said, when my father passed away, if I would have stood in that world, would I be here talking to you? Probably not. Right? Brought up by old strong women who said, this is boom, boom, boom. They weren't like on the up and up, but they were just aggressive Italian women dealing with the adversity they got, being single moms with all these boys that are trouble. Right? So as time goes on, I started doing the acting thing. So what the story is, I did a show at Kisa Fantasy Island in Hawaii, right? This is the show how I'm going to fast forward like many years. So after I start doing all these NYU films, all my buddies get arrested in 1991, right? They all get arrested. The neighborhood's empty. I did this film that Mira Sorvino cast me in 1991 called Amongst Friends. She was no one. We were doing an independent little film. She cast me in it. She was no one. Her dad put in 10 grand. And so she was a co-producer and casting person. Anyway, long story short, we did this independent film, Dribs and Drabs. 2 years later, all my buddies get arrested. I get a call from the director. And he goes, hey, we're going to Sundance. Now, Sundance wasn't what it is today. It was this. The awards were here. Robert Redford was giving awards in a room like this. Like, it wasn't like the big arena it is now where you're going, oh, the Oscars. No, it was real. That's when it was a film festival. So anyway, our film goes there. I drive from the Bronx with $5,000 in the car I had from making money on the streets. I drive from L.A. I passed all that. I not have to worry. It's all like, what do they call that? Statute of limitations is gone. He looks like a cop, so I'm nervous. He keeps staring at me. I get nervous. But anyway, I take what I have, little bit, whatever I had left, that had no one. Everyone was gone. I drive, and when I wanted to be an actor, all these street dudes would be like, what is wrong with you? What the fuck is that? What's acting? I would go into social clubs and put on my student films. They'd be like, what the fuck is that? What is that? A little nasty? I'd be like, shut the fuck up. I love doing this. And it was my life. Like, I knew where I wanted a path from 5, 7, 10, from watching TV because, again, I was alone. So I watched TV, and that was my outlet, and it became my career. So we get in the car in 93. I drive to L.A. I pick up Mira and a couple other people and we drive to Utah. We get to Utah. Our film was a massive hit, Among Friends, about Jewish gangsters in Long Island. Doug Allen was part of it. Like, a lot of the guys, like big showrunners, actually were ballers. They were the guys who wrote and directed it. So we all come out here. The film's a big hit, right? I go, oh my God, we go to Utah. It's massive. We're like the hit. That's how I got in Usual Suspects. I met Brian Singer. He had an independent film there called Public Access. Our film was in competition with his, and when we got back, he put me in Usual Suspects. So when I get back, my idol filmmaker is Oliver Stone from NYU. He went to NYU. His professor was Martin Scorsese back in the early 70s. So I would always I fixate on Oliver Stone, not Scorsese, not Coppola as an Italian-American. I would always fixate on Oliver Stone. I read his books. I would be like, this is, come back from LA. First day, I don't even have my union card. True story. I go, okay, so my buddy, the director, goes, Oliver Stone wants to meet me. You want to give me a ride? I'm like, yeah. So I drive him. I'm a kid, union card, nothing. I'm going from Sundance to Bronx, doing whatever, to Sundance, to now I'm in LA. I drive him to Oliver Stone's office. Oliver Stone says, come in to the meeting. I'm like, really? Like, this is surreal. This is my fucking, excuse my language, my film idol. Like, this is who I want to be like. And I'm in a room with him the first day in LA. He goes, he's sitting there, he's talking to the director. He goes, I want you to direct any movie. Oh, I go, yeah. He goes, I love your look. I'm going to put you in my next movie. Now, it's Hollywood. Okay. I was like, really? This is great. 2 months later, plane ticket, Natural Born Killers was my first film in Hollywood. And I got to hang out, become friends with Robert Downey, Tommy Lee, Woody Harrelson. I was in that movie. I'm on the back of the box. They ended up using me for the press. But my story is I didn't have a union card. He paid for my union card. So the person I was like, this is what I want to do. Like this guy ended up starting my whole career. How weird is that? Right? Is that a coincidence? Again, everything leads to something when it looks worse. My whole life is like that. And, when I did Sopranos, I auditioned for Sopranos in 1997, for 1998, before the first season. George, I did a movie, again, I did a little movie called Suicide Kings. I did 1 day on it. I wasn't supposed to be in it. Dennis Leary shows up. He goes, hey, we're not going to say these lines. He had 5-page monologue. I had no lines. The guy didn't want me in the movie. My buddy wrote it. He said, I want Louis in just 1 day, be an extra. I was like, okay, I'll do it for you. I'm in the car. Leary throws the lines out. He goes, me and this guy got to improvise. 1 night in the car turns into 8 scenes in the movie. They wrote a movie for me and Leary from that. It was just because I show up enthusiastic, as you could see. I'm never lacking energy. I never lack. This is me morning, noon, and night. My daughter's when I'm sitting at the table, she's like, does he shut the fuck up? She looks at me, so I'm like, no, we're not done. She's like, okay. So feel bad for that kid. She'll be 17. So turns out, this movie, Georgianne Walken cast Sopranos. She saw me in this movie because Christopher Walken was in it. She loved me. She goes, I want to try to get you in the first season of Sopranos. I auditioned, and then I got this audition for this Fantasy Island, starring in the show with Malcolm McDowell in Hawaii, living in Hawaii. And I was like, okay, so I get this lead role on an ABC show. I'm like, yeah, 30 years old, I'm living in Hawaii. This is great. I'm living the life now. The show bombs, and it's a massive failure. And I'm getting blamed. You're not funny. I go, I didn't say I was funny. You fucking hired me. It's your fault. I don't think I'm funny. All my roles are serious. Sopranos, Entourage, 24. Most of my roles are really serious. That's opposite of my personality. I'm not a real serious person. I like joking. I like having fun. So anyway, the show bombs. I'm in Hawaii. Everything came down. Adversity again. Oh, shit. This is terrible. My 30 grand a week. I'm 30 years old. I'm on an ABC show. I'm a failure. This is terrible. I say, the hell with it. I'm going to fly back to New York, see my mother. It was Christmas time. I'm always with my mother. We FaceTime 100 times a day. We fight, hang up on her. She FaceTimes 9 times back. I keep hanging up. She keeps doing it. But anyway, we're like brothers. We're like as tight as can be, me, her, and my daughter, right? So anyway, I go to New York to visit my mother. And the casting people, Georgianne's like, Louis in New York? Because they saw the show got canceled. And their showrunners were part of the Sopranos now. The 2 people that were working on Fantasy went to Sopranos. And I'm there 1 day, and I knew Gandolfini way before Sopranos. We used to, actors, everybody hangs out, so I knew him way before, 94, 95, 96. We used to just hang out, right? They hear Louis' show got canceled. They were like, yay. I was like, yeah, man. So I go to Sopranos, right? And Georgianne's like, Louis in New York, tell him to come up right now. I was like, holy shit, this is great. 1 day, I'm there. I go up, Gandolfini's in the room with a couple of showrunners. He's like, all right, I want you to read these scenes. It was a me and Big Pussy, but he's like, I'm going to read with you. I read one scene. He's like, okay, it's done. I was like, oh, man, I really suck. I just got fired. Now he's shooing me out of the room. And this is my friend. All the showrunners just staring. I was like, this is terrible. It's a bad week. I go downstairs. Within an hour, they call me, you got the role. Probably 1 episode turned into 13, the whole arc. Okay? And my point is when I got canceled and I thought it was miserable and I went to New York just out of misery, go, okay, it ended up being the biggest thing ever because I got the second season, which was the biggest season. It was when The Sopranos really hit. Everybody was looking forward to the second season. And I got thrust into one of the best storylines in TV history in a way, And I look at that and I go, okay, even though I didn't get it in the beginning, maybe, and the showrunner who was my buddy said to me, take the cop role. I go, really? He goes, maybe one episode or maybe 10, but you will be different. You will be different. You will not be another 50 gangsters. I was like, okay, because, that's not really, turned out he was right because 2 years later, the executive producer, creator of 24 was watching Sopranos. And he called me in and he goes, hey man, I love you. Now in Sopranos, I don't know if you ever seen I'm the cop. Hey, I'm going to kill you. I'm bust your head. I'm like an aggressive dude. The executive producer brings me in for 24 and he goes, we got a role for you. He goes, I watch you on Sopranos. You were really great. I was like, really? Now I'm expecting, me and Jack Bauer, kind of shimmying down and kicking windows in. He goes, you're going to be Edgar. I was like, okay. Edgar's this, I don't know if anyone's seen 24. I play this really sad, my mother dies, everybody dies, and I cry in every scene, right? Like the whole show is this depressed guy being yelled at by Chloe, a little 5-foot blonde here. Shut up, Edgar. Okay, and I start crying. That's the character. It's a really emotional, toned down soprano law enforcement guy. So anyway, I'm like, this is kind of interesting, and they wrote, again, I was supposed to do one episode. I did 48 and we won an Emmy from basically the Edgar character. People loved him so much with Chloe. It was so attached to these two characters. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like I really pride myself as an Italian-American, as a big Italian-American, not to play a gangster ever. I mean, out of 100 movies, out of 10 series, I probably played two gangsters. Everything else is cop, the neighbor, the friend, which is an achievement. I got honored by the City Hall in New York for a body of work for that years ago. I took my mom with me to City Hall. I thought it was like, two people, they were going to hand me a little thing. Turns out it was 1,000 people in City Hall. It was Steve Buscemi, the head of Lenox Hill Hospital. He's a body of Italian-Americans, achievement of work. And I was like, one of these four guys were like surgeons and the head of HUD. And I was like, holy cow. And I had no speech. That lady came up before me. I saw her with her charts. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't have a chart. What charts and background. I was like, yeah, I need a massage after this one. So City Hall was the same thing. Steve Buscemi was one of them. They were reading like this. And I was like, I told you the guy, the surgeon, I go, I don't have anything written. I just thought it was one. He goes, just talk. You're good. Everyone's here to see you. I was like, really? I get up 45 an hour later. I'm still, but they give me a stand-up. I was like, yeah, this is great, So I learned one thing. When you speak from your heart and speak truth. If you have to lie to people, you're afraid of people. I'm not afraid of anyone in this room. And that's why I thrived in Hollywood. Without any acting school, any film school, my tough upbringing neighborhood brought me to such a stone persona that when I go into auditions, people get nervous. I don't give no excuse I'm going to say it, but I don't give a fuck about what anyone thinks of me. I tell my daughter, who cares what people think of you? Unless me, your mom, and my mom. Who else care? What do you care what your friends think? What do you care what people think about you? People are so, into that mentality of, oh, how do I love? Who cares? I wear the same pants every day. I walk to any club in Vegas. I go anywhere I want. Be you. Always be honest. Always be true to you, and handle adversity as a plus. Because if it doesn't crack you and you're not dead, you could still move on and figure stuff out. My whole entire career has been the adversity challenge. At 5 years old, up until now, and the biggest blessing, remember I said at 5, 6, all I did was learn how to cook. I'd always be in the kitchen with my 3 Italian mom, my whole family, and they were all like cooking. And I was always fixated on the kitchen, as you could tell. Like I just love eating and I love cooking. So I would sit in the kitchen, I would watch, right? Flash forward to now. I started a frozen pizza line with my daughter. It's called bLU. She's Ava, I'm Lou. And we're about to launch on QVC and all these platforms. But again, it came from the worst scenario everywhere. No guys around for whatever. But I learned how to cook. And now I'm 50-something. And I'm launching a frozen pizza line from all of that knowledge that I pulled from being a child in the kitchen. It's almost like that was such a blessing. Because I learned another massive skill. And I try to tell people, the motto of my company is, let's bring families back to the dinner table. Let's teach our kids to cook. It's such a valuable lesson. Everybody's so used to going, I'm going here, I'm getting garbage. I cook every single night. Everything I make is from scratch to making the recipe. You know, I got no life, so I sit there and I cut vegetables. I feel like I'm in the prison, you know? But I make everything. I don't just make Italian food. I make bread. I make everything. But that whole skill that I pulled from the worst thing growing up as a child, that was kind of my outlet, that and television, right? At 5 years old, television and food. And look what happened years later. My whole career has been unbelievably blessed. I've been one of the most blessed actors. No education. I went to 5th grade. You know how I learned how to read? I'm a big sports guy. And when I quit school, none of us went to school, right? There was 4 friends that we had no fathers and we all just bound together. We were working on a TV series now with MGM. It's kind of a tale of these kids. And again, so you know, I just believe that all the stuff that's happened to me, the negative stuff, has made my whole life 1,000 times better. That's just the reality of what it is. And when people go, oh, my Tesla's battery died, shut the fuck up. You know, what? That's your problem for today? I walked around this campus, I was sweating, I got full out of Ubers, and I came here so happy. I was like, here, I'm here. It's irrelevant. Bad stuff happens so greater things can happen in your life. If you hop on the negative and go, well, that Uber guy and I was sitting here mad, would I be enjoying this room? No. Fuck no. You know, shit happens. You just got to let stuff go, and you got to be, you know, you got to think there's always better things around the corner. And that's been my life. And started from the movies, the TV show that I told you I sat with my grandmothers, to learning how to them cook and watching the TV. Those 2 became my entire massively beautiful life. I've been to every country, Japan, London. I worked everywhere. I worked with the biggest, most successful people, you know, with no education. And I loved football growing up. And how I learned how to read was I would buy, you know who John Madden is? John Madden was because I played football for 10 years in New York as well. And I would read John Madden's books because I was interested in the topic. I wasn't interested in reading school books. You know, I'm that guy, you put me in, I'll learn in a minute. And I'm like, you know, I'm winning. That's I've always done it with acting, with everything in life. So, you know, it's basically, it's basically the reality of, like, you know, of my life, which is.
So I have one question.
I forgot my thing was on. I thought, maybe there's something in my ear, like I was hearing an echo. I thought, like, okay, is this my last day at the podium?
So I'll give you an insight. Hein, you'll give us about 5 minutes for this one question.
Okay.
And then she'll start walking up.
Okay. She left me in the street.
So I just have one question. That was amazing, which is hence why I sat.
Sorry, yeah, I stopped talking. I just, you know.
No, but I want to get you to share the story you told me about on the phone. And it relates to the only question I want to make sure I ask you, which is the passenger question, which I kind of gave you a heads up on, Louis, which is that if you were sitting on a plane next to a stranger, they leaned over and gave you some life advice, or asked you for some life advice, what might you tell them? And then you told me a story. So I'll let you just tell the story. I don't give you the 5 minutes.
Well, it's kind of funny. About a week ago, I was going to Sundance again. I've been going every year since I started. That's like my thing, right? I love it. So I'm on a plane the other day. This is before his email. Again, is it meant to be? Right? I'm on this plane, and there's this little plane. It's small, right? And I'm sitting down. I get in my seat, and all of a sudden, I see this dude twice my size walking. One with a big beard, right? Younger dude, right? He's like, here, sees me, sees the seat. He looks. He gives me a dirty look. I go, oh God, me and this guy, we're gonna be sitting in the seat. Okay. He stares me down. He's like, puts his bag up. He crunches in. He sits there. I'm like, okay. This is last week. Sits down next to me, and I like talking to people, so I like to become friendly. So I'm just like, because I saw him all gruff and annoying, right? And he looks to me, hey, no. And he pulls up his phone, and he's got like this, like his wife and like 4 kids. Like, oh, that's a beautiful family. And we just start talking about family, right? And, the problem with our today's society is everyone generalizes everything. And I become a victim of that. All these kids, all these fucking guys sound like my mother. All these fucking kids, all these kids today, right? And you find yourself generalizing people, especially our youth. And I'm on the plane and we start talking. He's like, yeah. I go, hey, where are you coming from? So we start talking. And up is we become the best buddies for this 2-hour flight, right? And he's like, hey, so we start showing me his film. I go, I have a daughter too. I go, how old are you? He goes, 33. He goes, I got 4 kids. And he's a young kid who we all generalize about. And I look at him and I go, really? You got 4? He goes, yeah, I can't wait to get back to him. He goes, yeah, we're cooking. I go, holy shit, I've been doing that with my daughter forever. Now, this is a young kid. I'm an older guy who does it, but he have an old school mentality. He's a young kid and he's doing it. And he's working, and he's flying back to his 4 kids. He goes, look at my wife, she's Lebanese. I go, when I brought it out here, I was like kind of brought in by a Lebanese family. So I learned how to cook Lebanese food. So he's like, yeah, my wife. I go, so we start talking food and kids. I go, what you got to do is, no matter how much money, I always do this. No matter how much money you got in the bank, you can't buy memories with your family. I spend every nickel. I get a job. All right, where we going? My daughter. Because when you die, you're going to leave the money. They're not going to remember you. But if you have 1,000 memories, every time me and my daughter do something, we'll say something like, remember that? And all that money and time I spent in the future pays off because the memories are more important than money. So the kid's on the plane. He's like, yeah, I can't wait to get back. And I'm looking at this kid, and it was almost reminding me of me as like a dad. And he's 33. And I said to myself, I told my daughter, because even my daughter, I go, oh, all you fucking kids, you get that mentality sometimes because the society plunges you with bullshit nonsense. And she's a cheerleader. And I finally, I went to the school to watch her cheer, and like state champion, she's like being thrown around. I'm like, the physicality and the mentality, she's doing it from 6 a.m. to 7. And I started going, I learned a massive lesson on that plane ride. And I got home and I told her, I will not generalize anyone, especially our youth anymore, because this kid's young. He's bringing up his family. He's working all over the country. He's basically cooking with his kids. Basically what I did as an old school guy, he's doing. So that's not our entire youth. It's not our entire civilization. And I learned a lesson when I got off that plane. I learned I will stop generalizing. I don't care what it is, your color, your race, your whatever. I get along with everyone. But I found myself over the last, year or two going, these young kids today, because you watch so much nonsense, but if there was videos back then, you would see the stupidity of the kids. Because I'm not going to get political, but like even Vietnam, remember when we got home, there were the riots and things. It's the same thing as what the kids are doing now. It just wasn't social media. So I realized, and I got off that plane, I was so happy. I said, this kid's a young kid, and he's making it happen as a dad, as a parent, our youth is not generalized. And I hope more of the young kids do that kind of mentality. And it was just made me happy. It kind of reminded me of me rushing home to his kids to cook with his kids, big dude, but he was like from Detroit. I'm from the Bronx, different worlds, different ages, but with the same fundamentals. And I thought that was amazing. And I learned the biggest lesson: stop generalizing anything, take people as individuals. And people go, I don't like that guy. I go, well, maybe he don't like you. I get along with him. Everybody has a different personality. Unless you're my brother, I will not like someone because of that. I don't care who he is. But if you're just friends, everybody has a different path, a different mentality. Maybe he don't like your vibe. Maybe he likes me. So again, with that kind of mentality, is when I meet people, I treat them how they treat me, and they get reciprocated back with that. But again, the most important thing I know is adversity builds character and strength. Anybody who quits never really had the determination to succeed in what they tried. It was just a dream with no execution, right? But if you get hit with a million things and they start derailing you and you're like, fuck this, and you just keep going back, and then you break the wall, you're like, wow, 5 years of adversity, the wall's broken, and now I'm through it. So what else you guys want to know? Who's taking me for pizza tonight? There's some great spots. I have a Venmo.
So I'm all here.
Uh-oh, she's stepping up. She left me on the street for an hour. I was sweating. I'm sorry.
Why isn't he told me? I felt, because Atlanta's waiting, I want to get up here. But the cool thing he told me was that then after he got this life lesson on a plane from somebody else, then my email comes through saying, "Well, yes, question of being on a plane."
And it was so weird. I got off the plane. I'm in Utah, and I go, this is the weirdest thing about sitting next to a passenger on a plane. Again, is that meant to be? My whole life is that. And I was like, this is weird. Maybe it was that dude sending me a fake email, like see if I badmouthed him. But it turned out to be this. So again, just everything just happens if you make it happen. Don't cry about shit that happens bad, because everything's going to happen bad all day, right? I got stuck somewhere. I didn't know where I was. Now I'm here having a great time. Thank you, everybody.
And I'm moving up.
Thank you, buddy.